Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Travis. The name of the podcast is I Might Be Wrong. Thank you once again for joining me. I appreciate it. Before I get started today, I just wanted to address something that I've had asked to me recently. Some of it just people reaching out to me. In some cases, personal conversations where people have asked me, is everything all right? You're not doing as many episodes. What's going on? And I just thought there may be some of the rest of you that are wondering some of the same things. And the truth of the matter is what's actually going on is I have just been extremely busy. I started a new job that involves a lot of training. And at the same time, I dropped myself into a big renovation project on a house. So my life for the last probably 3 months has been get up early in the morning, go to work, and then when I get done with work, I go to work again until I can't really see anything because it's dark. And then I go to bed and I get up early in the morning and go to work, and it's just been repeating like that. And so finding time to actually throw the podcast in there has been very difficult. That being said, I truly love and intend to continue to do the podcast. It's something that brings me joy. And I think that's something that's really important for every single human being, to pursue and do the things in our lives that bring us joy. That's where we're going to find meaning and purpose in our life. It is in the pursuit of joy. And even like the little mundane things that we do in our life, do them in a way that actually make us happy. Do them the way that we want to do them. Make sure that we understand our why and do it and perform those whys for the right reasons. And life in and of itself becomes a whole lot more joyful. So that's what's been going on. I appreciate all the support that I have gotten. I appreciate the people that have reached out to me, commented, and for anybody who wants to support the channel, any support is absolutely 100% appreciated. And for all of you guys that have done that up to this point in time, thank you. It means a whole lot to me. And for anybody who's wondering how they can support, you'll find links in the description. And if you don't want to support me monetarily, that's absolutely fine. Doesn't bother me at all. You can support me just by clicking subscribe or leaving a comment on the podcast platform of your choice. All of those things help the channel grow. And just share it with other people that you know if you truly enjoy the content. Because if you're listening to this, I'm assuming that you hopefully enjoy the content. So, that being said, let's get started. I have had some conversations with people recently, and the nature of those conversations have led me to this place where I think it's really important to remind people of just the nature of the creation around us. Because in the last 100 years, there's a lot of things that have gone wrong when you get into things like, advancements in human technology, the Industrial Revolution. Has it disconnected us from nature? Has it, crammed us into tight little cities? Do we live in a less human way than we once did before? Yeah, there's definitely some validity to that. But advances in technology have also led to some amazing discoveries in medicine. They've given us the ability to treat a lot of things that were untreatable, things that were death sentences not that long ago, now are things that we actually have the ability to take care of because of technology. And one of my favorite things I see within technological advancements is just how much it has exponentially exploded our understanding of the creation and the universe around us. Because it's given us the ability to look into the farthest parts of the universe around us. And in looking into the farthest parts of the universe around us, what we discovered about the farthest parts of the universe around us is just how little we knew. Because for millennia, people were convinced that as they looked out onto these stars, that's exactly what they were. They're just stars out there. Imagine the astonishment of scientists, and even to me to this very day, to realize that much of what you look up in the sky and see at night that's shining brightly back at you is not a star. It's actually distant galaxies, and each and every one of those galaxies are full of stars themselves. The scope of the universe absolutely exploded when you realize that that's actually what we're looking at. And the Milky Way is just one galaxy that's part of millions of other galaxies in a vast universe. And that's just all of it somehow interconnected. And here we are, the human being, sitting in the middle of it. And we're sitting in the middle of it on a planet that is unlike any other planet that we have discovered up to this point, because it's a planet that's teeming with life. And it's an abundant life. And that's the other thing that our technology has done for us, is it's allowed us to see just how amazing this life is and how amazing this planet is. With things like microscopes all the way down to then electron microscopes, MRI machines, like all of these imaging machines, they give us the ability to understand how cells are actually working in concert with one another. And how everywhere we go, there's actually living organisms that are surrounding us. Whether that's in cases of like viruses or bacteria. And when I say bacteria, a lot of times we tend to think, well, yeah, like that bad bacteria. But there's all kinds of good bacteria that are living all over organisms all over the place. And actually helping us function as human beings. As I sit here talking to you, I'm a human being and I'm alive. And the truth of the matter is I'm covered with microorganisms. I have microorganisms that are living inside of me, and a lot of them are actually doing me a whole lot of good, making sure that the food that I eat gets broken down properly in my intestines. These are things that we didn't know anything about. We didn't know just how detailed the creation was, and just how magnificent it was. And if the scope and the scale of it doesn't amaze you, and you're bored by the idea of all these tiny little details, then all you really have to do to be amazed by it is just to step outside and touch grass. I mean, literally do it. Go see a mountain. Go view a sunset. Go look at the ocean. And just be utterly blown away by the fact that this is this creation. Go witness, go plant a garden. Go plant a plant in general and watch it grow. And it, in and of itself, that just right there is 100%, in my mind at least, absolutely amazing. Witness a thunderstorm. See something like lightning striking down. All of these things show us that this universe around us is overwhelming, it's powerful, and at its core, it's beautiful. Because it all intricately works together, and it all shows evidence of this divine creator behind it, who has taken care of all of the different little details. Right down to even as we float around in this solar system, and I realize float is a very, I'm taking liberties with the term, but understanding that if the Earth's axis was tilted even 3 degrees in either way, life on this planet would be impossible. The distance that we live from the sun, without that distance, life on this Earth becomes very difficult, and then it becomes impossible. We're literally receiving like less than 1% of the energy that the sun is exploding out into the universe around us, and yet it's the perfect amount to sustain life on this planet. All of it should absolutely amaze us because it shows evidence of a creator who not only has created something, but he cares about it. And this is what we see in the book of Genesis. We see God pouring out his creative handiwork, and then we get to day 6. And the pinnacle of God's creation arrives. The pinnacle. Which means everything else before that is leading up to this one thing. And what is that thing? That's the human being. That's you. That's me. The only thing that God creates, that he creates in his own image. He breathes life into it himself. He gives it his breath. This is who we are. And he sets it in dominion, or having authority over the entirety of the creation. And in that way, we actually are here bearing the image of God. And not just simply from a place of authority, but just simply by our very existence, we are image bearers of God. And that means by our very existence, as great as this creation is, the easy thing to forget is it all pales in comparison to the creation of the human being. And everything about it seems to be directed towards the human being. This is what we've discovered even in physics, is that the universe around us is geared towards the observer. Well, who would the observer be? Well, that would be humanity. That would be us. So God makes us in his own image in the very beginning, in his image. He gives dominion to the human being over all of the rest of creation. And in so doing, right from the very beginning, God is declaring our identity as human beings, as being something that's different from everything else. And that identity is not tied to the fact that we exist in the universe. It's tied to the fact that we, from the very beginning, have been connected to the creator of this universe. And then as you read through the scripture, we realize that he affirms this identity all the more in his son, Jesus Christ. He affirms exactly who it is and what we are here for, what he has placed us for, and how important we are. And yet, I see today, and I mean like in this age, in this current event time, that we have a tendency to look at everything around us, and instead of being inspired by it, we're overcome with despair, especially right now. And we can come up with a million different reasons for why we can despair. Because, here we are, we're alone in the universe. We can't find anything else. There's a desperate search for people, amongst people, looking for some form of intelligent life, hoping that somehow that gives us something to be connected to. Because the idea that we're alone in the universe, that in and of itself brings despair. But then just look at our circumstances. I mean, it's easy to look at our circumstances and to become defined by them circumstances, and in the end, we can end up feeling alone. We can feel let down. And life at that point in time certainly isn't worth living, because it's really, really easy, and it's going on right now in this day and age, to look around us and think to ourselves, it's really not even worth trying, and it's not really worth living life right now. And the reasons are actually kind of interesting when you get down to it. Like, it doesn't pay to try. It doesn't pay to work. It doesn't pay to try to find any sense of meaning and purpose in life because interest rates are high, There's an oil problem. Have you seen the pump price? The gas prices at the pump? There's this conflict that's going on in Iran and in Iraq, and not Iraq, Ukraine and Russia. They're still fighting with each other. There's this rampant climate change that's going to destroy the world around us. Surely, we were told 10 years ago it would be 10 years from now, but this time for sure it's going to be in the next 10 years that we're absolutely screwed. There's wars. And then there's a reality that we tell ourselves that why even try, especially for the younger generation? Why even try? Because I'm never going to be able to afford a home. I'm never going to become as successful as the generation before me. I'm never going to be able to raise a family, because this is what everybody tells me. I go on the news and this is what they say. They say it's become harder and harder and harder to succeed in life. It's become harder and harder and harder to get anywhere in life. It's become harder and harder and harder to do anything because of all of these different things that are going around you. And what I have seen and what I have witnessed is I have witnessed people simply swallowing it wholesale and thinking to themselves, what's the point? I'm not going to try. Why would I try to better myself? Why would I try to improve? Why would I try to learn new skills? Why would I press into my gifts and my talents? Why do any of these things? It's pointless if you can't really get ahead. And then we find and we look for people to blame around it. First of all, we might say, well, the generation before us, they were able to succeed, but they had it better. And then they ruined it. And so now I'm angry at the generation before me, because if they wouldn't have ruined all of this prosperity, maybe I would have a chance. But no, they wrecked it for me. And then all of a sudden, here we are setting generation against generation. We're setting people groups against people groups. And ultimately, it leads us to this place where we ask ourselves, why bother? And when I think about this, I'm reminded of the movie, not the book, because it doesn't appear in the book, but the movie, The Two Towers, which is part of the Lord of the Rings trilogy of movies. And although it doesn't appear in the book, the line is so indicative of who the character of Samwise Gamgee is that honestly, in my opinion, it almost should be in the book. Because at one point in time in the film, Samwise Gamgee is reflecting on the fact that you have all of these different people, heroes of old, the stories that you hear of these people that they go out and they fight and they do all of these things. And you also hear him doing these things where he's remembering life back in the Shire. And all of the good things that that are there, and he can't wait to see any of these things. And And it's almost as though Frodo is tortured by the very thought of all of these things. That why would these, why are you talking about this? And he makes this statement that all of these people were willing to go fight these battles. They were willing to adventure. They were willing to do all of these things, not because life was easy and not because it was fun, because now they're in the middle of an adventure and they realize it's hard. It's not easy to go on when life is beating you down, when the enemy around you is telling you, you may as well just give up because what's the point of even trying? And it's in that moment that Sam says, the reason they did it and the reason you would do it is because you remind yourself that there's still some good in this world. And it's worth fighting for. And that's such an important thing to understand and realize. Because it's so easy to fall into the place of despair, to convince ourselves that there isn't any good in this world. In fact, all there really is there's me, and then there's the people that I should be against. And we're surrounded by a world that wants to pit people against each other, to convince us that there's not good in the world. What there is there's a bunch of people with terrible ideas, and if they get their way, the world is going to be destroyed. And at the same time, they're telling those people about the other people who are out there, and if they get their way, the world around them is going to be destroyed. And so, rather than look for good, rather than find hope, rather than try to plan and make a dream or a hope for tomorrow, instead, despair, be full of anger, be full of hatred, don't do anything. If you are going to do something, rise up against your fellow man, who is created in the image of God, by the way, and do some harm, because guess what? They're probably the problem anyways. You see, that's easy to do. It's really, really easy to do. And when we do it, we adopt this really amazing mantle that has the ability to take a human being and strip us of the identity that belongs to us, that identity that says you are made in the image of God. And we replace that identity that says that's not who you are, you're a victim. You're a victim of your circumstances. You're a victim of the world around you. You're the victim of interest rates. You're the victim of the fact that the oil prices are high. You're a victim of the fact that you're not going to be able to buy a house. You're a victim of the fact that there's different ethnic groups that hate you. You're a victim of the fact that the generation before you destroyed the world around you and there's no hope for you. You're a victim. And man, that is such an easy thing to just pile on us. And the moment we do it, we lose our humanity. Because the moment we do this, we are no longer defined by our Creator. We're no longer defined by the fact that He made us in His image. We no longer hold the position of authority that's been given to us. We no longer hold the mantle. And that's so important. Because God placed us in this earth to exist in this earth. To be fruitful, to multiply, to bring increase, to exercise dominion over it, and do it as a good steward. We see a veering away from this very early on. Adam is in sin. God comes to him and says, "What have you done?" And what does he say? Does he take ownership? He's like, "No. It's that woman. That woman. I'm a victim, God. It's not my fault. I had no choice." This is what victimhood does. It robs us of our identity and it strips us of the relationship and the unity that we have with God. And it removes us from our very existence. It takes from us really one of the most powerful things that God could possibly grant us. And that's this moment right now. It's the fact that you get to exist on this planet right now, and you do so as a child of God, and everywhere you go, you carry the kingdom of God with you. He's present with you. This is what He promises. And so you're not supposed to despair. You're not supposed to tell yourself, "Oh, you know what? It doesn't matter what I do. I'll never be able to accomplish anything." That's not what the Bible says. The Bible actually tells us to make plans. It tells us to do things like set goals, to count the costs, to do all of these things, but do it understanding that the Lord is the one that's in control. In the Proverbs, we actually read, we make plans and we make these plans, but ultimately it's the Lord that decides what's going to happen. And I think that a lot of people tend to think that, well, God already knows what our future is and He's deciding what our future is before He gets here, before we get to it. And I might be wrong. which is why that's the name of this podcast. But I disagree with that. I don't think that's what's going on. I think that when it says we make plans and God decides, it means that how those plans are going to actually play out. I honestly think God blesses the plans that we make. He blesses the goals that we set. He's going to be present with us because it says that He gives us the desires of our heart. And I don't think that means necessarily that all the things that I desire in my heart, God is going to give me. I think what that means is the reason I desire the things that I desire is because God gave me that desire for them. He gave me a desire for them from the very moment I was created. And every single one of us is unique in what those desires are. And we get to live them out on a regular basis. And we can pursue them understanding that God is the author of it anyways. And do it with joy. And so we make these plans. We can set these goals. But when it comes time to actually accomplish them, step one is the most important step. And a lot of times what we're doing is we say to ourselves, you know what? I have all of these things that I want to do in my life. And step one is I want to get a job with this company. And so then I go apply at that job for that company and I don't get it. And then I say, I got to keep on waiting because step one isn't coming here. Or step one is I need to, buy this piece of property, or I need to save up this much money, whatever else it might be. And it just doesn't happen. And so we convince ourselves, well, God doesn't want me to succeed. I'm not supposed to succeed in this. Or maybe God thinks my plans are absolute garbage. And so basically we do nothing or we wait. In the meantime, we tend to forget that we're given the moment. It doesn't mean you have bad goals. It doesn't mean you have bad ideas. It doesn't mean you should despair. It just means change step one because God's probably placed step one sitting there smack dab right in front of you. It's just not necessarily the direction that you would go. And who cares? That's what makes an adventure. That's what makes it wonderful. He's always going to lead us down the paths that don't necessarily make sense to us. They don't necessarily mean that it's going to be fun, but that doesn't mean God isn't blessing us. My goodness, He anointed David. He had Samuel anoint David as the next king of Israel. And as a result of this, David spends all of these years hiding out for his very life, fleeing from the existing king of Israel, who he can't raise a hand against because he understands that you're not supposed to raise a hand against the Lord's anointed. This is what it was like for him. And honestly, that's his step one. It's not necessarily step one for David is you got anointed and now everything's going to be great for you. No, step one is you get anointed. And the next thing we hear about him is he's off in some encampment where there's an army and he's trying to do something, to go against the combat. To go against this giant that's part of the Philistine army who's making fun of them. And instead of being praised for it, he's mocked and ridiculed by his own people. But still, it's step one. And God blesses him in this because He knows the plans that He has set before him. Every single one of us live within the promised generation of, not even the promise, within the fruition of the fulfilled promise of Jesus Christ. People like King David longed to live in the days that you live in right now. Longed to have that identity that you bear with you right now. You are in Christ and this identity has been affirmed. And so the truth of the matter is if there's any group of people who should look at the world around us and not despair, not give up, it's you. If you're a believer. Remind yourself of who you are. Look out at this creation and understand there's nothing about it that's intimidating. It's supposed to be beautiful. It's supposed to remind me of the fact that there is an amazing, powerful God who has intricately placed it together. And I'm made in His image and I am meant to be here on this earth. Tell yourself that. Because the opposite is despair. And despair can lead to only a couple of different places. Either you hate everybody else for having the things that you don't have, and you end up being an angry, embittered fool of a person, or you just want to give up entirely and end your life. And still you do it as an angry, embittered fool of a person. All because you bought into the lie that you're a victim, that any one of us are a victim. No, you are not. It doesn't mean bad things can't happen to you. It doesn't mean that people can do terrible things to you, but you're still not a victim. That's not who you are. You're not the result of what people have done to you. Your identity is not tied to some of the different, just overwhelming circumstances that you might live in. You're not a millennial. You're not Gen Z. You're not Gen X. You're not a boomer. You're not any of those stupid things. None of those things identify you. All of those things are meant to kind of put a dividing line around us. And that's where you get, okay, boomer, and all of these people making fun of the way that people talk and think and whatever else. But none of those things are real. None of them. Including the desire to look at it and think to myself, oh, you know what? My parents were able to get here, and now I'm this old, and this is where I'm at, and I'm never going to be where they're at. Completely disregarding the fact that, guess what? In many cases, 10 years ago, they were in a worse situation than you're in. You have hope. You have a meaning, you have a purpose, you have gifts and talents that have been placed inside of you by the living God of this universe, and you bear His image. Own every moment of that. And understand that your presence here on this earth makes it a better place so long as you embrace who you are. In Him, in Christ. Because that's when we become exactly who we're meant to be. That's when we adopt our sense of meaning and purpose. That's where we find hope. And ultimately, that's where we are able to pull away from this idea of it's hopeless. There's no point in trying. What good am I? Because at that point in time, your circumstances no longer define you. The opinions of other people no longer define you. Remember who you are. Remember who we are. And understand that you carry that identity wherever you go in this world. And the same living God who has made you in His image is present with you wherever you go. And He will bless the plans that you have made. Maybe not the way you want it to. Maybe not in a way that makes sense. My advice to you, keep making those plans. If they're not working, it's probably because step one is wrong. And God has one that's blaring right in front of your face. And He's letting you know, actually, this is step one. And you can ask yourself, well, how do I know? It's because it's here. It's because He placed it here. Be encouraged. You're not alone in this world. And it's not because I'm talking to you on a podcast. It's because you belong to God. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. Can't wait to talk to you guys again. Bye.